Welcome back to another episode of the Flying G Huddle, your inside look into Gladwin football. I'm Casey Campbell, I'm your host, and joining me as always is my co-host, the head coach of Gladwin football, that of course is Marc Jarstfer. How's it going?
Going well, Casey. I'm glad to be doing another episode of this.
Yep, and coming off another win. So they coming off a win against Harrison. It's talk about that. We'll break down the play. The final score of that was 48-6 over Harrison. Just 2-0 on the season. I know we talked a lot before we started taping this. I know it was obviously still a lot of things to fix, but overall, still good to start 2-0.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to get off to a 2-0 start. But like you kind of hinted at, there were a lot of things that we can clean up from this game, which is good, right? Like you don't want to ever just roll through and have that sense of complacency or anything like that. Like there's always going to be things to correct. But getting off to a 2-0 start is always obviously beneficial and the goal. And so we're happy to be where we're at right now.
Yeah. Okay, so let's kind of go through the game. Scoring started off in the first quarter. Jace Maskey, a 59-yard run. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so initially the way that the game started is we elected to receive, and they kicked an onside kick and recovered it, and so that was less than ideal. But our defense was able to get a stop and get us the ball back, and then I think that was our second play from scrimmage. This week we opted to go with a tight condensed formation and actually ran some full house T this week. And a lot of tight end and two tight end sets. We just thought that our size and physicality would bode well doing that. And so with Jace's first touchdown, we ran just like a power play to the right, and he was able to break some tackles and take it the distance.
Yeah, and then in the first quarter again, Trace runs it for 54 yards to make it 13-0.
Right. Yeah. Same thing. We were able to get a defensive stop, get the ball back, and I think it was another couple play drive that resulted in Trace taking it all the way down.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's go to the second quarter. Now Harrison gets on the board. A Logan Williams 3-yard run got Harrison on the board. They did fail the 2-point conversion, and then you guys answered right back with a pass from Colton, gets it to Trace. I know you're going to be hearing that a lot this season, to go up 20-6.
Yeah, and so Harrison did a really good job of just like methodically taking it down the field on us, kind of a few yards per play, and kept picking up the first downs. I think there may have been a fourth down conversion in that drive as well. And so they're like we talked about in the leading up to this game show last week's episode, how they're good at what they do and just methodical. There's nothing fancy about them, but they just rely on running their stuff well, and that's kind of what you saw an example of there with the way that they were able to drive it down the field. But after we were able to get that back, which I believe they tried another onside kick, we were able to recover that one, or at least a pop-up kick behind our front lines. So we were in good field position, and we're able to connect with Colt to Trace, which has been a pretty special connection so far this season. And then to round out halftime, we were able to kind of methodically drive it down within the red zone, and that drive resulted in a Corlew 4-yard run for a touchdown, with a Seeger kick to make it 27-6 at halftime.
Yeah, and then in the third quarter, it's Trace again with a 25-yard run to make it 34-6, and then which followed with a 20-yard run from Jace Massey to make it 41-6.
Yeah, I mean, both of those guys are special. We kind of talked about them again in the show that we talked about, like going into our season. And two of those guys are some of our biggest playmakers and just really special athletes. And so, we try to get the ball in their hand as often as we can. Obviously, game plan and what a defense is doing will kind of dictate some of that. But they've both been able to have, good performances in the limited touches that they've had to score and make things happen and show off their athletic ability.
Yeah, for sure. And then in the fourth quarter, it was another 14-yard run to make it 48-6.
Yeah, and that one was Nori Cahigas. You know, he's a guy that's played pretty well for us. He has some playmaking ability. He's not as big as some of the other guys, and so it was cool to see him kind of round out the scoring, and he's put in a ton of work in the off season and really kind of changed his lifestyle around to make football a priority and make schooling more of a priority than it's been in the past. And so it was cool to see him get some payoff late in that game with the touchdown and rounding out that game with a 48-6 win.
Yeah, for sure. So overall, your takeaways from the game.
Yeah, I thought that we were pretty good offensively. We did have some issues that we still have to clean up. High snaps, fumbles. I think we turned a fumble over, had a snap go over the quarterback's head, things like that. But overall, we ended up with 387 yards of offense. We were 4 or 5 on third down. So anytime you can have an 80% efficiency on third down, that's going to bode well for you throughout the course of the game and the season. And we're 1-1 on fourth down, and so we were able to make big plays in crucial parts of down and distances to extend drives, and ultimately, if you're able to do that a lot, it results in points. And so, but like I said, a few things to clean up with turnovers and snaps and missed assignments and those sorts of things, because when you get down into crunch time in the playoffs or games where it's right down to the wire, those are the type of things that loses games for you. And so we'll focus on that and try to get those cleaned up going into this next week against Shepherd.
Yeah. All right. Well, what it is time for. It's we do this every single week. It's time for you to hand out your 3 awards for the week for offensive, defensive, and special teams MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. And so offensively, again, it could have been a few different guys. We opted to go with Jace Massey. His overall stat line was 4 carries for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. And so it was good to see him get an opportunity to showcase some of his ability. He had some crazy stiff arms in that game, and he's just a big, strong, athletic player. And so he got a chance to showcase some of those, and it worked out really well in our favor. Defensively, we're going to go with Hunter McDowell. He's a defensive lineman. He ended up with a pretty good stat line of 8 tackles, which is big out of a defensive line position in our defense. But really his willingness to play across the defensive line in multiple different positions was key for us. He was able to go in and play some nose and obviously played at our defensive tackle end position. And so he's just a strong player, technically sound, smart, coachable kid, and he really, really cares about the success of our team. And so he had a great game playing in all those different positions, and we're really happy with him. And then for a special teams MVP, we're going to go with Scott Inchko. He plays on every special team that we have, as well as starting offense and defense. But his ability to run down the field and take on blocks and blow blocks up and still be able to get on the tackle himself, or take on blocks and allow his teammates to get in on tackles is a big deal and allows that unit to be successful. He did a good job on our extra points blocking and same thing with punt return and the rest of them. And so it was a good performance out of him all the way around, but also on special teams. So those are our 3 for this week.
Right. Is there anything else that you I know there's a lot of things going on, but is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything you guys got going on? Anything cool going on over at Gladwin?
There's nothing specific this week that we have going on. In a few weeks, we are going to take part in the B4 foundation for Brady Hesbrook talking about mental, health and suicide prevention and that kind of stuff. And so that's coming up here in a couple of weeks when we play Sanford Meridian. And so actually our entire athletic department, all of the teams are taking part in that, and we'll be wearing the B4 Foundation shirts for pregame. So we got obviously football, soccer, cross, boys and girls, soccer, volleyball. And so, there's going to be over 200 athletes wearing those shirts, and it's just a good opportunity for our coaches and athletes to have a conversation about, mental health and make sure that kids understand that, they have somebody to talk to and we care about them. And that sort of thing. And so that's coming up in the future. Another one is during Clare Week. We do a competition. It's called Battle for the Bowl. And that'll be, an off the field thing where we'll get our entire student bodies involved in it. And what it is it's like a food drive. And so like a canned good or like toiletry items. And Gladwin will raise as much as we can in donations, and so will Claire. And the cool thing is the team that raises the most gets to keep this traveling trophy. That's just a big bowl. It's like a mixing bowl on top of a wooden block, and then all of the donations that are raised in the respective communities stay in the respective communities. And so it's a fun opportunity, for our student body to compete with what's become a pretty big rivalry. And so we're looking forward to that as well. But as far as this week, there's no, big unique things that we're going to be doing.
All right. So to make this show more interesting, there's a lot of things that are going on, and there's always interesting things to talk about. So let's play the famous game. Start a new game on this program. It's called Beat Jarstfer. You think you can beat them by picking college and maybe NFL games? Who knows? All right, here you go. Your first game is, of course, these games are all this coming week. We didn't pay. I know there are games today and tomorrow on the college side, but we're going to save those. We'll save those for next week. But okay, your first game is Nebraska at Coach Prime in Colorado.
Yeah, this is tough too, because I don't have a lot of time to research these things, and so it just kind of goes by what I see on ESPN, or if I'm able to catch a quarter or a half of a game or something like that. But this is one that I did get to see a little bit of with Colorado's win over TCU, and I thought that Colorado was extremely impressive with their ability to compete at a high level and beat a team that played in the national title game last year with the roster turnover that they had. And so I'm riding with Coach Prime until they give us a reason not to.
Okay. Purdue at Virginia Tech.
This is one that I don't know a lot about. So, if viewers are picking these games in the comments or whatever, this is an opportunity for them to get one on me. I'm gonna go with Purdue. I mean, I'll always favor the Big Ten wherever I can, and so I think that the Big Ten is one of the toughest leagues in the country, and so if it's a toss-up game, I'm always going to side with that.
Okay, pretty good non-conference game here. Ole Miss at Tulane.
Yeah, I mean, Tulane will probably be able to do some things. I would anticipate that would be a high-scoring affair. But, similarly to the Big Ten, the SEC is just too good. And so ultimately, I'd have to pick Ole Miss in that one.
Okay. Texas A&M at the U.
Oh, boy. Same thing. Probably Texas A&M. I think that last year they were off to a good start, had some things kind of break down, but that's kind of an established coaching staff now, really good players in the SEC, and so I would go with Texas A&M in that.
All right, probably the big game of the week. Again, two ranked teams, Texas at Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is going to be one of those surprising teams, and this is obviously one of the most pivotal games early in the season, and you'll find out a lot about both teams. But everybody knows Nick Saban's track record, and so until Texas is able to start competing with those big boys again, I'm going to have to take Alabama.
USC at Stanford.
USC looked really good this last week. I mean, they're explosive. They have dynamic players. So I'll take USC in a big win.
Yeah. Eastern Michigan at Minnesota.
Eastern Michigan's done a good job as of late, but PJ Fleck is a great coach and had tremendous success over the past few years. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see it somewhat close in the first half, but ultimately I think Minnesota will pull away on that one.
All right. New Hampshire at CMU.
Oh, fire up Chips. I'm a Michigan State guy. And of course I live, right by Mount Pleasant. And so, I like CMU. They're always fun to watch. They played Michigan State extremely tough. Not sure how good Michigan State is. And so I don't know if that's much of a compliment for CMU, but, I think ultimately they'll pull out the win in that one, and they should have a really good season this year in the MAC.
Speaking of Michigan State, Richmond at Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick Michigan State. That's my team. But that first half worried me a little bit. They're going to need to play much better in the future if they're going to want to, have a good season this year overall. But I will take Mel Tucker and the Spartans over Richmond.
Okay. And the final game is UNLV at Michigan.
Pains me to say, but Michigan is just too good. I mean, they have talent and size and speed and strength everywhere, and so you kind of saw that, this last week or just yesterday, I guess. And they're going to be way too much for any of these teams early on in the schedule.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the NFL games. The Detroit Football Lions taking on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Good grief. You're really pitting me in a bad because I love the Lions. I've been a diehard Lions fan. They've set me up for failure too many times in the past, but and I always start the season saying the Lions are going to the Super Bowl, and it never ends that way. But we're going to take them. We're going to take them right now. This is maybe another opportunity for viewers, if they're going to pick these games along with me, to get one on me. But they've been encouraging with their offseason moves and the way that they finished last year. Of course, the Chiefs is a whole nother animal, but I think Dan Campbell will have the Lions ready to go, and hopefully he doesn't prove me wrong.
Yeah. By the way, if you want to leave your picks down in the comments, go right ahead, and we'll see if you can. We'll see if you can be. I know your staff's going to play along with you because why not?
Yeah. I mean, anytime there's an opportunity to beat me in anything, or we can be competitive in any way, they're always up for the challenge. And so normally, they can't nail me down on things like this. And so you've done a good job of putting it on the record, and I don't have a choice. And so if they do beat me, there's going to be no way for me to wiggle my way out of this now.
I try. Okay, Browns versus Bengals.
I mean, that division is crazy tough. I like what the Browns have been able to do over the last couple of years, but the Bengals have been a pretty special team, and so I'd go with them.
Yeah. How about the Raiders versus the Broncos?
I think with the new coaching staff, Sean Payton in Denver, it'll be interesting to see if they're able to put that thing together with Russell Wilson and whatnot. And so I'll pick the Broncos early.
Okay. The Bucks and the Vikings.
Yeah, that's another one, right? With no Tom Brady and not knowing what you're going to get there. I think Baker Mayfield's in the running. I think I would opt for the more established team with Minnesota to take care of that one.
Okay. Packers and the Bears.
Man, this is another good one. There's lots of storylines in all of these games. Obviously Aaron Rodgers leaving the Packers and the season that Justin Fields was able to have last year. I'm going to have to opt with the Bears again, just because they're more established and you don't know what you're going to get out of Love.
Yeah. How about the Cowboys and the Giants Sunday Night Football next week?
Yeah, that should be a really good game as well. I think I'd be more apt to lean with the Cowboys, even though the Giants, had a good turnaround season last year. But Cowboys aren't a big fan favorite in Michigan, but we'll go with the Cowboys.
Okay. And then finally, the last game, the Bills and the Jets.
Same thing. I mean, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, obviously debut there. He's great, Hall of Fame player, Super Bowl champion. But I think I'm going to have to go the other direction there, just because they're more well established, and in that game obviously is a divisional game, and so it has huge implications right off the gate.
Yeah, for sure. Those are the picks. If I'll put them down in the comments if you want to. I'll also put them on social media as well. If you want to beat Jarstfer, go ahead and submit your picks, and we'll see how you do. So that'll be fun. Now, I know your staff and mostly your players will play along, but that'll be fun. So, all right, let's go back and preview this week. Shepherd comes into town. And of course, you have to say goodbye to your home stadium for the next 4 weeks, as you won't see that place until October. So yeah, going on the road for the entire month of September.
Yeah, this has a chance to be a really good game. Shepherd they seemingly are athletic. They fly around on the field defensively, and so I think we'll have our hands full with this matchup. I have a ton of respect for Coach Irv Sigler and what he's been able to do there over the past year or so since he's taken over. At the early season last year, they got off to a bit of a slower start at like 1-2, something like that, and then they really took off down the stretch. I want to say going 5-1 into the playoffs, and so that shows their coaching staff and he are able to make adjustments and put the best scheme and players on the field. And so I would anticipate a good battle with them all the way through. And it's our second league game, and so the league is still wide open, and all of these games matter. And so they'll be hungry, we'll be hungry, and we expect a good one on Friday night this week.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What do you feel like you guys got to do to get the win week 3?
Just like I talked about with the Harrison game, any of these games that are going to be, tight and potentially come right down to the wire, you just have to limit turnovers and big mistakes, negative plays, those types of things. And so if we're able to clean up some of that stuff and not put the ball on the ground or turn it over through the air, I think that we'll have a chance to play well offensively. And then defensively, it always comes down to reading your keys and whatever we give you that week for the scouting report, just buying into it, watching the film, understanding what they do, so that you're able to play fast on Fridays. If we're able to do both of those things, offensively, defensively, and have a solid special teams game, that'll set us up to have a lot of success on Friday.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Flying G Huddle. Thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck this weekend against Shepherd. And we will talk to you next week when we'll recap this game against Shepherd. We'll also preview this next game against Clare. We might have a guest too. You never know. So stay tuned on that. All right, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Casey.